Hey all, name is Nat. Exceptional individuals, we support neurodivergent people to flourish in the workplace and also to support lovely organizations to be even lovelier and to help bad organizations to meet the bare requirements. We're actively trying to get everyone to see ND not as a disadvantage, but as a difference that can be utilized and supported. Now, we do these interactive deep webinars every Thursday, and we have been doing them on pharmacology recently, looking at medication, what works, what doesn't work, what you shouldn't be taking, what you might be taking, and alternatives. We're going to be changing pace a little bit today and looking at anxiety. Now, anxiety is a very anxious subject, and there are lots of different kind of medications and treatments that can support it. Due to the sheer breadth of anxiety medication, I've decided to focus more on the foundations on what anxiety is today. And the reason is, when we say anxiety disorder, we use quite a broad term, and actually there's many different ones. In order to know how to best support your anxiety, it's kind of good to know what type of anxiety you might have. Now, as always, not a doctor. Please go see your GP or a medical person should you need help. Now, anxiety isn't just affects neurodivergence, but you do have a higher likelihood to have anxiety disorder if you are neurodivergent. Some may even say that anxiety disorder counts as a neurodivergent, hence one of the reasons why we're covering it today. If you haven't heard of us, our team is mostly neurodivergent. We're experts via experience, and I would say there's definitely a couple of anxious people in the group, myself included. And you think, wow, how can he be anxious? Well, anxiety affects people in many different ways, and we're going to be learning that it's not all equal. It can be quite different to how it presents itself, and also what criteria you might meet for different types. So hopefully it'll be nice and interesting. Now, our last webinar, which is going viral on the internet, I say that, we've got 100 views already. That's pretty good for us. It's booming. Absolutely booming. Do check it out, the ADHD and substance abuses. Some very nice things. Anxiety 101, an anxious subject. Now, we'll talk a little bit about how it's different from depression, how it kind of overlaps. You can be anxious and not depressed. You could also have both as well. If we are successful today, we're going to be looking about a comprehensive understanding of anxiety, knowing when anxious is just an emotion, but anxiety disorder is a condition, very much being depressed and having depression. We are going to be looking at symptoms, so what actually counts as anxiety, prevalence, how many people are actually anxious or count of having an anxiety disorder. Different types, although there are a load of different types of anxieties, the ones we're predominantly going to be focusing on include social anxiety and agoraphobia. It's a weird spelling, that one. But yes, those are the two we're going to be looking at. We've got physical and mental symptoms of anxiety. Sometimes they are inwards facing, and other times they are externally facing. Basically, sometimes we think something is going on, and other times something is physically happening to us, but our reaction might not be proportionate. And states on how common they are, again, talking about prevalence. Now we know what the hell is anxiety? You tell me, because anxiety is one of those umbrella words. I'd love to know what it is in your mind before I tell you what it is from a clinical perspective. Let me know, what does anxiety mean to you? And it'll be interesting to see if your understanding of anxiety matches up with the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. All right, for me, it's a constant stream of external monologues going over and over events. I love a good monologue myself, but I do get stuck in them. Essentially, repetitive thoughts that you just can't escape from. Essentially, not having as much control over your own thoughts as you would like. Not wanting to go out and finding it hard to cope with change in routine. Yes, that is a very particular type of anxiety, one we'll be focusing on today. Whereas some people, it's like, I don't want to go out just in case something happens, where others will be like, something bad did happen to me, and as a result, I don't want to have any part in it again. A false alarm in response to an event. Yes, that is definitely one type of anxiety. It's that flight or flight response, which is really great for saving our lives. But sometimes it's a little bit too sensitive. When you're just cooking a little bit of toast and your alarm goes off and you're like, come on, alarm, it's not a fire. Anxiety is that, an oversensitive fire detector, an ability to let things go, an inability to let things go. Actually, the opposite to Elsa and Frozen. Just can't let it go. Extreme stress reaction. Yep, absolutely. Unable to do something for fear or failure. Yep, fear is a really big part of anxiety, even if it's not justified. But also, it can be justified. It just might go on for longer or be more intense, which might interfere with day-to-day life. This chap, Spielberg, I think I'd be pronouncing his name Spielberg. It might not actually be. Whatever the Dick Geezer's name is. Steinberg, yeah, is that what I'm saying? All right. Okay. He is an expert in this area, and he defines anxiety as an unpleasant negative emotional state. In his own words, a specific emotional state which consists of unpleasant, consistently perceived feelings or nervousness, tension, and apprehension with associated activation or arousal of the autonomic nervous system. So when we think anxiety is all in our head, it is not. Anxiety can be a very real, or is a very real condition. It affects part of your body. This is something which some people like, get over it, it's just in your head. No, anxiety is a real thing. It may originate from the mind, but then it will affect other areas. So cheers, Spielberger. Now on this one, I want to see what you think is what. So how does anxiety affect you personally? We know it's unpleasant. We know it's pretty negative. We know it's to do with emotions. Are you the type of person who gets it now and then? Or are you someone who has it, so it's crippling that you're barely able to do or live the life you would want to? Now, if you have occasional symptoms, that should be anxious. People are anxious. It's a very natural part of being a human being. But if you find extreme fear, that's when you might want to get help. And if it's in the middle, I would say that's quite average. Please don't feel that it's wrong with you if you sometimes feel anxious. Being anxious is normal. Anxiety, in other words, is an unpleasant emotional state, involves worry or fear. It can be mental and physical symptoms, and those are two that we're going to really dive in deep on. And while normal in moderation, excessive anxiety may indicate a disorder. If you're on the left side, not a disorder. If you're on the right side, potentially a disorder. Not everything's disorder is only when it's excessive. Or if it goes the other way and you have no anxiety whatsoever, which arguably could be quite dangerous. Another one to all of you. What mental symptoms do you feel when anxious? When you are anxious, what's going on in the old noggin? I want you to write 5 out of 5 if you feel a lot, or maybe 0 if like, yeah, I don't feel that. Now we're looking at mental symptoms, ones which are internal facing. Fear, unease, repeat negative thoughts, difficulty concentrating, confusing, or depersonalization. Now, if you don't know what that one is, this is when you no longer feel yourself, when that who you are, and that's not that. Oh, April has just said, I had bad anxiety last year. I thought this was brought on by the new routine or support staff supporting me with my cleaning and not knowing when I was going to move back to Newport, Wales, and be close to my family. I hardly went out further afield and I felt nauseous and had stomach pains. I ate less and usually lost weight dramatically. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing, April. That's very brave of you. And secondly, thanks for sharing. It's very normal to suffer anxiety bouts in your life, but from what you mentioned, it was really affecting you from living your best life. Uncertainty can really be a thing, particularly those who are neurodivergent. As I can see, yep, a lot of these. Next one, what about physical symptoms of anxiety? So when you're feeling anxious, what physical sensations do you notice? Do you feel that churning in your stomach, which feels horrible? Do you feel that light dizziness, pins and needles, unable to sit still, fear, aches and pains, faster breathing, or irregular heartbeat? Now, you notice some of these things happen for a reason. I've got pins and needles right now. Am I anxious? I don't think so. I think I've just been laying on my foot for too long. So just because you have some of these symptoms, it doesn't mean you have anxiety. A lot of things kind of overlap, but these things together is an indication that you might have anxiety. Like if your heart is continuously beating faster, if you're always breathing, if there's always pain, if you're always lightheaded, that might be a sign of an anxiety disorder. So as you can see at the moment, a lot of you are doing good, which is nice to see. And regular heartbeat, I guess I'm just checking my Fitbit, it's still ticking. I don't know what counts as regular or irregular, but yourself, what feels right and what feels wrong. However, sometimes anxiety and OCD can actually mess with that kind of internal sense. So you may feel that you're literally dying, but you're not. It's because you just go into panic mode. Health anxiety is a real thing, and it's definitely something that I've struggled with in the past. Now, pop quiz, woo! And I purposely picked the worst graphic I could possibly find. So with that, let's do some quizzing. What's a cardiovascular symptom? Discomfort over the heart, difficulty in breathing, or nausea? Yay! You got it. Discomfort over the heart. Cardiovascular is the heart beating. And if you feel that kind of heartburn or that heart sensation or that kind of pain there, that is a really good sign that anxiety is creeping up around the corner. It's not actually pain in the heart, but it feels that way. This is why I say that. All right, next one. 2 or 3. Dry mouth. Difficulty in swallowing. Butterflies in the stomach. Belong in what group? Are we on about neurological, genital, or gastro? Okay, come on.
Neurological, genitourinary, gastrointestinal.
Yeah, which one of those? And obviously, when we talk about butterflies in the stomach, we're not talking about that bug you swallowed the other day when your mouth was open. It's something about that kind of uneasy feeling where you're just like, this doesn't feel quite right. And yes, it is absolutely gastro. So this isn't neurological. These are physical symptoms. And this is really important to know. Mental health, physical health, we try to separate them too much. They're really overlapping and they have so many similarities. If you feel these things, they're not all in your head. They are absolutely real. 3 or 3, last one. Nice little quick quiz today. What is not a symptom of anxiety? Anxiety can affect us in many ways. Is getting blurred vision not a symptom? Is a lack of libido, which is a bit of interplay? Or is it throbbing in the neck? All of them are a symptom of anxiety. And yeah, trick question. Now, there are a few people who disagree about lack of libido, which is basically kind of sexual urges, but there is also evidence which suggests it is heavily connected. Particularly if you're having anxiety, quite often you'll take a drug called sertraline, and similar ones to that, they do kind of make that drive dip. But in terms of blurred vision and throb in the neck, very common. The brain just kind of gives up. And you think, how are these connected? But they are. Quite often people get like kind of lymph nodes, like lumps on their neck. It's very physical anxiety and depression as well. Let's see how we're doing here. Vic, smashed it. Nice. Emma, what happened, Emma? How the mighty have fallen. Have to reclaim it. Nice one, Ashley. Good one, April. Don't worry, Vicky, just accept it. Ride that wave. Anxiety has very diverse effects. It can honestly affect people in many ways, and quite often you're like, nothing to me. First of all, it can affect you in a psychic way. And before you're like, psychic? No, not that type of psychic. Just kind of psychological, not as in kind of telepathic. We've got psychological there, cognitive, how your brain processes, it can affect your behavior. Now, what are some other components of anxiety? Well, first of all, behavior responses. It may affect how you respond to people in day-to-day life. Other ways anxiety may affect you are verbal descriptions. So how you kind of explain things to people, the different understandings. What is another one? Let's have a look. Psychological responses. It can affect you internally, externally, can affect speech, how it's kind of described people. It looks really different. Please remember, just when we talk about neurodiversity, we're not talking about one thing. We're not even talking about one thing which is quite similar. We're talking a really diverse range of responses to the body. Now, we talk all much about negativity, but there are genuine benefits to having anxiety. Can anyone name any? This isn't a response which was created by God to punish us. It was a thing which is actually created to support us, but is when it becomes too extreme on either scale is when it runs into difficulties. Yes, run from danger. If we had no anxiety, we'd be falling off of cliffs every 5 seconds, would have cheetahs biting our bums, would be probably stabbed in parts of London. Anxiety is a good thing. Staying alert, escaping danger, yes, keeping your children safe. If you had no anxiety, you'd be like, yeah, you just go play with those creepy old people in the corner. But your anxiety says, wait a sec, stay away from that clown. Anxiety is good. But if you have really extreme anxiety, if you just see anyone around you, you'll be like, stay away from them, stay away from them, stay away from them. And you won't be able to integrate in society. Benefits anxiety, yes, it can release hormones. It can make you more alert, patient. Please not think that this emotion or this state is always bad. In the right amount, it is good. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a condition where people feel no pain. And I thought, as someone who has suffered from pain, prolonged pain in the past, this condition sounded amazing to me. I'm like, what? These people feel no pain. You cut them, no pain. They bleed, no pain. But actually, this is one of the most dangerous conditions you can possibly have. Because when we feel pain, our bodies, this is something we need attention to, and you go get attention. Imagine you're laying on your stove, it's burning hot, and you're like, ah. But someone who doesn't feel pain, they won't notice, and it could get in a lot more severe. It can go both sides. Could do with a little pain blockage. A little bit would be nice. I'm saying if it went completely the other end, not great. Now, here is a nice list of anxiety disorders. And this is from the APA, the American Psychiatric Association. Which of these have you actually heard of? There are a lot of them. Let's try and... We've got agoraphobia. We've got panic disorder, specific phobia, social anxiety disorder / social phobias, generalized anxiety disorder, often known as GAD, substance / medication-induced anxiety disorder due to another medical condition, other specific anxiety disorder, or unspecified anxiety disorder. Most of you have heard a lot of them. And depending on your criteria, you'll fit into different marks. If you're wondering what the numbers are, this is just where you find them in the big old book. There are a lot. Now, if you just say you have anxiety and say you're getting support for agoraphobia, but actually you have substance / medical-induced anxiety, the support probably isn't going to be that useful. Knowing what type of anxiety you have can really help you with treatment. I'm going to go over a real quick definition on what each one of these means, because I definitely didn't know what all that means. So agoraphobia, fear or difficult to escape places, avoid public areas. If you're the type of person who hates leaving the house, you go into a party and your heart feels like it's going to explode, your birthday's coming around the corner, Christmas is, and you kind of are like, that is agoraphobia. Really common. The next one is panic disorder. This is recurrent, unexpected panic attacks. You're out enjoying your life, something triggers you, and you have a complete breakdown, mental breakdown. You're struggling to breathe, you're sweating, you're getting really hot. And also, you can have both of these, but they are obviously separate things. Another one is a specific phobia. This is, I think, the most prominent one. A fear of particular objects. If you're scared of spiders, clowns, ghosts, oranges, whatever you're scared of. And obviously being scared is a natural thing, but if it's excessive. My mum, scared of snakes. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to be scared of, because if you step on a snake, they'll bite you, they can kill you. But she is scared of toy snakes. She's scared of photos of snakes. Now, this is complete irrational fear. A photo's not going to jump out and get you unless it's one of those 3D photos. Fine. It can give you an idea. Then we've got social anxiety, fear of social or performance situations. With the first one, we talked about just kind of going out into the wild. You don't even have to meet people, but you might still have that anxiety. But social anxiety, it is that direct one-on-one communication or in group scenarios. Some people it can affect on a one-on-one basis. Other people it can be larger groups. Generalized anxiety, this is GAD, and this is chronic multifaceted worry. So a bit more kind of generic, not because it's less kind of severe, but just because it's more a range of things can affect you. A very common diagnosis, but also quite chronic. Substance-induced anxiety, you could probably guess what this one means. If you are currently suffering from drug addictions or substance misuse, quite often anxiety is part of the side effects that come from using drugs for a prolonged time or not how they are originally intended. Medical conditions induced anxiety. Anxiety from another medical condition. Anxiety is its own medical condition, but let's say you have, another medical condition, let's say Parkinson's disease. That in itself can give you anxiety, but it's kind of like a bolt-on. It's as a result of that medical condition you already have. Other specific anxiety, this is like, I don't know what it is, just bung it in the extra box. Or it could mean that you don't quite meet the criteria of the other ones. Rather than you not getting a diagnosis and not getting any support, the GP or whoever will say, well, I'm going to put you in the other specified. There's also unspecified anxiety, and you'll see these look quite similar, but one is kind of ... extra, and the other one is we don't know. And the last one is obsessive compulsive OCD, unwanted thoughts and repetitive actions. We've looked at a big spectrum here, and OCD is actually no longer counted as anxiety. It used to be. So essentially they got this extremes from both sides and they kind of cut them off, and now it's just the middle band, which actually counts as an anxiety disorder. Oh, we've got a mystery question. How does the NHS treat anxiety connected to other medical conditions such as ND? It seems to me they don't. You get CBT, which is known to be tricky if possible for ND folks. Well, cognitive behavioral therapy is talking therapy, and it helps you kind of break away. For instance, why is that cloud scary? And kind of really helps you understand and logically kind of explain it and process in your head. The NHS, not really. I've talked about this before. I think their talking therapies are very, very stretched. And for ND individuals, doesn't always work, hardly ever works in my opinion. And you might have to go specialist. Now, some areas of the NHS in regions of the country may have specialist support, but I definitely know that they don't have it all over. So it might require additional traveling, which obviously might not be appropriate for everyone, but definitely good point. I wish I had a better answer for you. Emma says, ACT therapy is good with ND. There are lots. Yeah, I've heard of ACT being quite popular as well. There are different therapies, and I honestly think you should try different ones. Don't think just because Nat said it's not good, don't try it. Works for some. PTSD, yes. PTSD is the other one. So that is no longer part of anxiety disorder, and OCD no longer part of anxiety disorder, but they used to be. That's why I included them. They're just considered kind of more stress. Acute stress, short-term anxiety, post-trauma. Okay, this is when anxiety doesn't affect you for a long term, but maybe you got mugged and you might have anxiety, but actually it doesn't last forever. So how do these disorders differ? How do we know what is one and what is another? Who kind of draws that line? Well, first of all, triggers. What provokes the anxiety? What is that kind of initial spark, which either means you are anxious for X reason or anxious for Y reason? So this could be internal or external. Remember, internal is when you're like, I'm not leaving the house because I just don't want to. Where external might be, I'm not leaving the house because I got mugged or I got shot at in Iraq. Like, you can see the difference. Symptoms profile, how it presents itself to you. Are you sweating? Are you kind of shivering? Are you getting kind of lumps? How is it presenting itself? What exactly is the anxiety rooted from? Is it rooted from being in the public? Is it rooted from drug misuse? Is it rooted from previous experiences? Another mental health condition? And also the behavior. So how does the anxiety present itself? Is it stopping you from going out? Is it meaning that you're less confident than you used to be? All of these kind of 4 factors is how you would diagnose which one you have. Now, I want to have a look at which ones you think are external and internal triggers. So, if it is external, you go out the circle, it would be the higher number. And if it's internal, it'd be a lower number because it would be kind of nearer to the middle. Which one is a direct result of something in an event or person which might trigger it, and which one is something which is your brain having these thoughts? We've got PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, PD, panic disorder, phobias, adjustment disorder, and GAD. All right, let's have a look. Yes, PTSD is very much external. Something has happened to you externally. This could be war, this could be a breakup, domestic violence, it could be all sorts. And as a result, you are anxious when you are triggered by certain situations. Adjustments, yep, absolutely. Phobias, I would say phobias actually, no, that is internal. I think you are all right, because a lot of the time it's irrational. No one, if you are scared of a tiger that's right in front of you, no one is saying you've got a phobia. You are very right to be scared of that tiger. But if you're scared of a little cartoon tiger, then yeah, that is rational. General, I think a bit more middle, panic disorder, OCD. Yep, absolutely, that's right. Yeah, I'd say that's very accurate, actually. All right, let's go into even more detail. Systems differences. Let's look at the differences between social anxiety and agoraphobia. So if you think it's agoraphobia on the left, if you get social anxiety disorder on the left, if you think it's agoraphobia on the right. These are all classic symptoms that you may experience: blushing, twitching in muscles, weakness in limbs, breathlessness, dizziness. And though they might sound quite similar, this is quite often how doctors will diagnose you. They'll look at your symptoms and then they'll know which one goes with which. I believe it's, yes, blushing, twitching in muscles, weakness in limbs are very commonly attributed to social anxiety disorder, where breathlessness and dizziness are often attributed to agoraphobia. Now, it's important to know both these anxieties exhibit all of these symptoms, but in terms of percentages, they'll look at how much it affects you. I would say actually the way that this bar should look is, I think it should be kind of higher on this one and then it's half and half. But interestingly, your results don't reflect that. I think it's because they do overflow so commonly. Now, let's break it down. What are the symptom differences? Let's say you have anxiety when you go to the shopping center. Now, how you are affected, why you are affected, determines whether or not it's social anxiety or agoraphobia. Social anxiety is being introduced by visitors. If someone comes up to you like, "Have a good day," you're like, might be social anxiety. If you're meeting with authorities and someone wants to check your bag, see if you're stealing something, and you just completely break down, that again, social. Being watched or doing something, maybe you hate being on camera, maybe you kind of get that paranoia that someone's following you around. And if anyone teases, make a joke, that could be enough. That could lead on some panic attack or some other physical symptom. Yet agoraphobia, this is more related to being alone. Maybe you're in a massive supermarket and you find yourself on your own, or you get separated from a friend and you just find this too overwhelming. Unfamiliar places. If you've gone to somewhere which is completely new to you, you don't know the surroundings, you don't know the people, that is another classic example. Crossing streets, public transport, and general department stores. Haley says, being obsessed with role play activities and training, worst experience. Yeah, but hopefully you can see the difference here. One is inward facing, one is externally facing. One is very physical, being in that environment. The other one is your opinion of that environment. Those are the key differences. Let's look at prevalence. This is how common something is. Now, what I want you to do is rank them in terms of how likely you think they occur in society. Okay, General anxiety is currently winning. Social anxiety followed close behind. PTSD had a massive increase. Poor little OCD at the bottom. Let's look what the actual statistics are, so we don't have to guess. Now, these stats were just taken from the EU in a 12-month cycle. They may not represent the entire world. Now, anxiety disorder overall, this is the umbrella term, okay? We're just talking about the umbrella. All of them together is about 14% of the European Union. That's a really decent percent. When we talk about dyslexia, we're talking about like 10%. More people have anxiety. Now, if we're going to break it down even further, specific phobias, such as spiders, snakes, whatever, is about 6.4% of the population. Then it goes all the way down to OCD, which is only 0.7, and PTSD, which is 1.1. But you'll notice some of these, the numbers vary, and this because depending on your age, they can vary quite dramatically. Generalized anxiety disorder dramatically rises the older you get. So the older you are, the more likely you are to have general anxiety disorder. Whereas PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, actually goes down. When you're younger, you're more likely to have it. The older you get, you're less likely to have it. And I think that kind of makes sense when you look at how when you're young, experiences can shape your entire life, or when you get older, for some reason, it doesn't seem to affect you as greatly. We're almost there. What did we learn today? Are you as shocked as this kid? We learned that there are types of anxiety, lots of different ones actually. And you have one social anxiety and agoraphobia. They are different and meaning you would want to support them differently. Rather than just saying, I have anxiety, if you can explain that anxiety to someone, they may be able to help you more. Symptoms, it is not just mental, which a lot of people think, it is very much physical as well. Anxiety is a physical condition as well as a mental one, and it can affect in different ways. And the prevalence, it's really, really common. But remember, if you were just anxious for a short amount of time, that is an emotion. If you are anxious for a long amount of time, that is interfering with your day-to-day life. That is when it might be a condition or something that you may want to seek support for. I have to talk about this. I'm contractually obliged to. But if any of you are in employment, contact us. If you have anxiety, you would be covered under the Equality Act and can get support in the workplace. For anxiety, some of the support that is available is mentoring, coaching, some of the therapies that we mentioned. For some people, noise cancelling headphones can be beneficial, but it really is very much a tailored approach. Some of you will know what this is already. Some of you will not. Now, any questions on what we spoke about today? How does the NHS... Okay, we've already asked that one. Any other questions before we round up today? Did you have a definition or talk on OCD? Oh. Yes, I have. We have done a talk on OCD. It's on our YouTube. Yes, it was done a while ago now, definitely a year plus, but we do have one on there. Does exceptional individuals have any resources or know if anxiety is actually OCD? Anxiety might be the emotion that you're feeling or the physical response, where obsessive compulsive disorder is where the brain kind of gets locked on something and keeps going around and it kind of burns you out. So they are different, but to know the difference, the best way, one, see your GP. Two, if you go on our website, we have characteristic quizzes. I believe we have one for anxiety, which can give you a better idea. And two, if you were to just Google, I would do either anxiety or OCD checklist on Google, it'll give you a list of the criteria and it will help you better understand what is one, what is the other. Obviously though, do not take what your research as an absolute. It's always best to seek a professional because they might know little nuances you may not know. No worries. Heads up, the next webinar next week got cancelled, unfortunately. The main reason is I'm going to the zoo and I've got a VIP tour with rhinos. Next week, there is no webinar. I'm hanging out with rhinoceroses. But the week after, it is dopamine versus glutamate. Now, these are neurotransmitters. These are chemicals that help our brain communicate. And you'll often hear people saying all the time, oh yeah, I need a little bit of that dopamine, or oh yeah, get this and it will improve your glutamate, or I'm low on glutamate. What is the actual difference of these chemicals? And why does one help in one area, one help in the other area? When you have a deficit in one, what does it impact? When we talk about OCD, we often talk about dopamine, depression, we might talk about glutamate, but they have many different roles. This will be a very sciencey one, but I'll make it as accessible and as easy to digest as possible. And here are our webinars if you want to catch them out. As I said, we do have one on OCD and another one on anxiety. Do check them out. Just go on here and I think click this little magnifying glass and you'll be able to find it. Here's our contact detail if you want to reach out, want to find more information, and we will end it there for today. Thank you all so much for attending. Yes, I will enjoy my rhino friends. I get to feed them. I'm ecstatic about it. They're probably going to eat my hand off or something. But happy days. And just to know, it's not just like a bad zoo. It's one of those massive safaris where they have crazy amounts of room to roam around. It's a nice ethical one I have tested. Okay, I would not dare to join the rhinos when you are taking a tour of those in case, despite the poor eyes you can figure out, but I wasn't one of them. Yeah, thank you, Gregory. Anyway, have a great day, the rest of you. And everyone else, I'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, thanks everyone.